Welcome to the Dream Huge podcast, where we'll talk with real estate investors, entrepreneurs, business leaders, athletes, and more to inspire you with their success stories so you can work hard, never give up, and dream huge. And now, let's start the show.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Dream Huge podcast, man. Super excited for this one today. We love to share success stories from other huge dreamers, folks in the real estate business, entrepreneurs, movers, shakers, influencers, and more. And hopefully these stories will help to motivate and inspire you to also dream huge, baby. So today we are joined by my very special co-host, Tyler Amos. How you doing, Ty, the real estate guy?
Blessed to be here, brother, as always.
Hey, thank you for joining us. And also our very special guest, Jonathan Rosenfeld of Rosenfeld Injury Lawyers.com. Jonathan, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for having me. Love the energy. Thank you.
Yes, we always bring the high energy on the Dream Huge podcast. So, Jonathan, let's start right from the top. Tell us what it is that you do at Rosenfeld Injury Lawyers.
Well, I am currently the founder and managing attorney at Rosenfeld Injury Lawyers. We are based in Chicago. We are a full service personal injury law firm with an emphasis on catastrophic injury cases. We handle everything from auto cases, slip and falls, to complex medical malpractice cases involving real significant injuries, wrongful death. We also do a fair amount of cases involving sexual abuse. So we handle the gamut of cases, but what we really try to do is really try to provide individualized representation for each one of our clients. So we're intentionally selective with the cases that we handle in order to devote maximum resources for each client. And that's what I do. So that's what I do professionally. Other than that, I'm married. I've got two wonderful children that keep me very busy. And when I'm not doing that, I like to cook and do pretty much anything outdoors. So pretty busy schedule, but love it nonetheless.
Yes. How do I know if I should even contact you or if I may have a possible case?
Well, I would say that if you are, involved in a situation where you or a family member was injured, you feel like someone else may be at fault, you maybe just got some questions about the situation, reach out and contact my office. We handle cases on a contingency fee basis. So what that means is we only get paid when and if there's a recovery for the client. So to contact me, to talk to me, there's never a charge. I have never worked on an hourly fee schedule in my life, and I don't plan on starting. So what I try to do is if someone has a question, if they're in doubt, if they just have questions about something that maybe just doesn't sit right, reach out, send me an email, give me a call, and we'll try to get to the bottom of it. I always tell people, you know what, trust your gut. If your gut says something doesn't sit well, reach out and contact me, contact another attorney, because there's really a limited window to look into these cases. There's obviously a statute of limitations, which is dependent on the type of case and the area where you're located. But probably equally, or if not more important, is to really reach out soon after an incident, because there's a lot of evidence that may come up after a case, which is really important for us to delve into. And the longer things go on, really, the more difficult it is to secure that information. So what we'll do is, if we're contacted by someone, just as an investigation, we'll take witness statements. We may go take photos. We may order medical records. Now, these are things which are not necessarily very difficult, although they can be. But the sooner that you contact me, the sooner we can get busy and have our investigators and other staff really reaching out and begin investigating your case.
Strike while the iron's hot, while everything is current at top of mind. Trust your gut. If it doesn't sit well, call Rosenfeld.
That's
Perfect.
I like that. You're coming up with some lingo, for me. I like it.
That's what we do. And the pay structure is very familiar to our business, right, Tyler?
Yeah, that's what it kind of sounds like to me. So, I mean, obviously as, realtors, we don't get paid until we help our clients either. We don't charge an hourly rate. We don't do anything like that. We're not successful unless our clients are successful, and therefore we don't charge until our clients have the outcome that they wish to have.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And the selective piece too. And I heard you mention that, Jonathan, where you kind of want to be selective and working with those that you can really specialize on and with. We don't want to take on everybody and anybody. Or if we do, we at least want to make them fit with the right person for that type of deal. So that sounds like it's very similar to what you do. So, Jonathan, how did you get to where you are today? Take us all the way back. Where was Jonathan Rosenfeld born?
Well, I guess I haven't really moved very far. I was born in Chicago, and I grew up in a suburb north of Chicago, and that's sort of where I am today. But basically, I grew up, I swam competitively, and sort of sports was always a big part of my life. I always really enjoyed competition. I really enjoyed the fact that with sports, it was really, you got out of it what you put into it. If you weren't putting the work in, you weren't really going to be successful no matter how talented you are. And I would say that that was probably one of the more important parts of my life. It really teaches you, obviously, the work ethic, the commitment, really just showing up each day. You may not feel like it, but if you really want to get ahead, you got to outwork the guy across the street from you. And that was sort of a lesson that I learned really early on. I probably wasn't able to articulate it, but that was a lesson that I learned, from the time I was probably 8, 10 years old. Eventually I swam in high school and college. I started the business school, and then I went to Lehigh University, and quickly learned that the computer programming part of the business curriculum did not really sit well with me, to put it kindly. And I gravitated towards what the easiest thing I could find, which at the time was journalism. And I graduated with a journalism degree, which my parents said, well, that's pretty worthless. No disrespect to any journalists out there, but there weren't a whole lot of jobs really knocking at my door at that point. So my parents said, well, what are you going to do now? And I said, I have no idea. And anyway, they encouraged me to go to law school. We had a couple lawyers in our family, and, everyone said, well, hey, if you doesn't really matter what you do, it's a great background. And I wound up going to law school. I wound up going to Chicago Kent College of Law in Chicago. And, I guess my academics, there's a pattern with my academics. I never really learned a whole lot in most of these schools. And I guess that continued on with law school. I sat there, and in law school, I don't know if it's very theoretical. And let's just say I'm a much more of a nuts and bolts, concrete type thinker. And really none of that resonated very well. And I did fairly average. And my parents said, well, again, they said, well, that's great. You got these average grades in law school. What are you going to do with this? And I said, well, I don't know. They said, well, how about getting a job? And anyway, long story short is I just wound up working at a personal injury law firm. And I quickly realized that this was actually something I could understand. Someone came into the office, they were injured. We worked on their case. We got them either a settlement or the case was tried. And I also really enjoyed the fact that there was a entrepreneurial aspect to it. The hustle involved to get the business. Obviously you have to be a very proficient, very good lawyer in the first place. No one's going to really come to you or send their friends or their family to you if you're really not doing a good job. But you're on top of really working on things professionally, there was always a hustle mentality. And that hustle mentality was something that, I don't know, it just rang a bell with me, because I realized that, you always had to be on the go, always looking for that next piece of business. And anyway, that was the beginning of it. And so early on, I was working at this firm, and I sort of had a taste for personal injury type cases. And after law school, I worked at different law firms, and I wound up doing different personal injury type cases. I worked at some construction cases, firms that handled construction cases, at firms that handled railroad injury cases. And ultimately, I also began learning how to market. And when I say learning how to market, I was one of the first I was in the Yellow Pages 150 years ago. And then the Yellow Pages sort of morphed into the internet, and then the internet, blogs and different websites. And And sort of that's where I am today. And so a big chunk of my time and really my energy has always gone into business development because, I realized early on, I'm not the brightest guy around, but I realized early on that it was really important to not only service your clients, but really to invest in yourself and to invest in your business for both the immediate and for the long-term success of it. So in a rambling way, that's sort of where I got to today. And I enjoy it. It's certainly gotten a lot more competitive than it ever has been in the past. I guess there's other people who are, maybe adapting to this, but all things being equal, I think if you're still willing to do the work and really just outwork the person down the street from you, you're going to have success. And if you stick with it. So that's what I really try to do.
Pete, what kind of I guess what other industry does that sound a lot like?
Dude, you might want to. This is exactly like real estate. Very, it's really cool just to talk to someone in a similar industry, but yet unfamiliar to us. So you had mentioned the yellow pages, and then you'd mentioned the internet. And you know what I tell folks all the time when they want to be a real estate agent? Look, you're not coming here. You're not in the business of selling houses. You are in the business of generating leads. Generating and nurturing your leads. And I would imagine it's similar in your business. So when you moved from yellow pages to internet, what specifically, first of all, was it difficult to build your book of business? And what specifically helped you build and scale your book of business?
The answer to your first question is yeah. It's everything's difficult. If everything were easy, everyone would be rich and skinny. Okay, it's a grind. Okay, and I think that you got to just be really willing to outlast and suffer through that. There's no magic bullet for anything. And so when I made the transition to from yellow pages to blogs and to websites or whatever, I always just had the mentality of, you know what, if that guy has 50 pages of content, I'm going to do 150 pages of content. And, things have really evolved in terms of search on the internet over really the past, things have really morphed in the past couple of years, but really over the past 15 years or so, everything has evolved tremendously. What worked 15 years ago that's dinosaur land today. It just doesn't work. The search engines have evolved. People have evolved. People are much more sophisticated now than they ever have been. They don't want to just see a bunch of, garbage that everyone else has. You have to really differentiate yourself, create unique content, create content that really satisfies people's intent, what they're looking for. If they have a question, you have to answer the question. And I think one of the more difficult things for me was I just was like, well, hey, I'm going to spew out all this stuff that I think is important or that I like. And, that may have worked for a short period, but really today people and search engines really are very sophisticated, and you have to, I guess, answer what the user, what your client is looking for in a very concise way and get to the point. Otherwise, you're going to be, basically they're going to bounce off your site. They're going to go to the next guy or gal. And I think that that's probably the biggest thing that internet marketers may have a hard time with, is to accept the fact that whatever they created, they may think it's the most beautifully written, well articulated, well laid out web page around. But if it doesn't resonate with your particular client or prospective client, it's not going to really do you any good. Ultimately, I always try to do prepare content that is really what my clients want. And there's different tools out there that you can use for it. If whatever industry you're in, if you actually listen to your client, I think you can really prepare really thoughtful content, which will ultimately help you and help your business.
Yeah, it's the good old Zig Ziglar quote, stop selling and start helping. The minute we stop selling ourselves and truly, genuinely empathizing with our friends, our people, our clients, that's when you succeed. when you can truly help others. And I love that. We're constantly thinking of what type of content can we keep pumping out there. But yeah, it should always go back to, you're right, Jonathan, helping the client. And of course, having a little bit of fun along the way. Jonathan, thank you for your time today. Any final thoughts?
Just dig in, grind, and survive and thrive. Just keep evolving, and I guess just don't stop. If it's not working today, just keep grinding, and hopefully it'll work down the road.
That is great advice. Jonathan Rosenfeld, appreciate you very much. Rosenfeld Injury Lawyers, check him out. Are you guys on social?
Of course we are. YouTube, TikTok, everything. But always Rosenfeld Injury Lawyers, and connect with us, reach out. If you have any questions, I'm here. I'm here to help.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ty, the real estate guy. Ty, any final thoughts?
Woo! No, man, that was super exciting to hear. And honestly, like just listening to Jonathan talk, like how he runs his business. I mean, it's what we do. Everything he was saying, it's exactly what we do here. You got so many people that are saying they can help you, they can do the same thing, whatever. How are you standing out? How are you being different? And everything that Jonathan said, I mean, that's what we do here at Dream Huge. So that was awesome to hear.
Yep. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to the Dream Huge podcast. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. And as always, remember the rules. Work hard. Never give up.
Never give up. And dream huge.
See the guns, Jonathan. Dream huge, baby.
There it is. Yeah, there it is.
See you guys. Have a great one.
Thank you for listening to the Dream Huge podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. For more inspiring content, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dream Huge Realty and on TikTok at Dream Huge Inc. Until next time.